If you are a fan of the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast and would like to help support the show, there's a great way that you can do that and start a new fashion trend. We have a new merchandise page on the website which features t-shirts and hoodies that are available for sale on Amazon. Just click on merchandise in the top menu and all of the links will be there, or go directly to divebarrockstar.com/merchandise. Get started early on your Christmas shopping at divebarrockstar.com. Welcome to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, a show exploring the lives of professional musicians of all types, touring musicians, recording artists, songwriters, engineers, bar bands, wedding bands, and anyone making their living in the music industry. Whether you've dreamed of being a professional or you already are one, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Eric Baines, and I hope that you not only find some entertainment here, but also some helpful tips, trade secrets, and ideas that will help you achieve your dreams. Last Friday marked 20 years in Los Angeles for me. So I want to just give a shout out and a thank you to all of the amazing musicians and fans and people that I've met here, over the years. It's been a unbelievably good decision for me to move here. I think it's really important to find your space in the world, kind of no matter who you are, and California just, as soon as I got here, I felt like, oh shoot, I'm home. I remember I came for a visit in 1998 around there, and I remember crossing Ventura on my way back to my car after hanging out at a club called Lava Lee, which is not there anymore, unfortunately. And I think I just watched Brandon Fields play the Smokin' set with Jimmy Earl on bass, and I'm not sure I can't remember exactly who the other musicians were, but I just kept thinking, why am I not here? And, it just seemed like the place for me, And granted, it's not a perfect place to live. It's expensive. The traffic sucks. There's earthquakes and fires. And, California gets kind of a bad rap in general. But I don't think there's any perfect place to live, really. I travel a lot. And in my experience, the level of complaining by locals is pretty much the same wherever you go. But the creative energy here and the history of entertainment is just incredible, and it's addicting, and I'm a proud Angelino. And I'm really grateful for what this town has given me, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next 20 years. And my guest today actually relocated to this town as well, except he came from a little town in Alaska. He's an extremely talented guitar player, singer who tours with Dennis DeYoung, formerly of the band Styx, and is also on Dennis's latest recording called 26 East Volume 1. He's also one of the members of the band Waiting for Monday, which I wrote songs and played bass on their record. And he's an amazing guy with an amazing story. So please enjoy my conversation with August ZADRA. So were you formally trained?
I moved here from Alaska to go to GIT.
Oh, okay.
And,
Gotcha.
Which is now more properly known, I think, as MI. It used to just be GIT. And then I think actually the year I went, they had just opened BIT and VIT and KIT.
Right.
Wow. And I think there's probably even more now. But that was a 1-year program. And I was lucky that I had saved up money in Alaska to come down, so I didn't have to work like a lot of my friends were working and going to school, and it was just tough, and I was able to really be immersed in that whole environment, and I'd be there sometimes, 16 hours a day, where I had a roommate, and then at one point we had 3 other roommates that crashed on the floor for a while, so it's like, I'm just gonna go live at school, It's like, and I had this beater Squire Strat that I still have and love.
Wow.
I just didn't have a case for it. I just would throw it in my locker at school. And that thing keeps coming back for more.
Wow.
But I used to try to learn, still suck at setting my own intonation, but I would grab that guitar, be so frustrated, just throw it on the ground. It would never break, just bounce back up.
Go Fender.
But it was a year-long program there, and I learned a lot. forgot a lot since, but I can't read music for shit anymore.
Yeah.
Can I say shit on this? It's like
you can say whatever you want. It's a podcast. I don't even know if anybody listens to this.
Right?
So we're in good shape.
But it's just so cool to be there with, probably at least 1,000 other students that everybody's there for the same reason,
Right.
It was kind of at the end of the crazy shred scene. But so they were calling it, I forget what the nickname was out there, but you'd walk down the hall. Did you go there? No, you went to Berkeley.
I went to
right?
Berkeley.
That's right. You'd walk down the hall and they had all the doors have like a small, like 6x6 window in it or something, 8x8 maybe. And you'd hear somebody just, playing crazy shit. And if you went to look in the window, they'd be like this, "Yes, me." It's like, it was just so like, dude, I mean, I like what you're doing, but
right.
it's kind of intimidating, but it was offensive in a way too. It's like,
right.
Hey, can you play with anybody else? I see what you do.
Right. Yeah.
And there's, that's been my thing too from, I grew up with all these, admiring and studying all these amazing players, rock players primarily. And at some point, a lot of people thought, oh, you go to GIT, you take the pill, and then you come out and you're this guy. And it's like,
right.
I'd already been playing for like 7 years when I went. So I knew my way around, and it was more learning about theory and, composition. But I never was able to, it's hard for me to make peace with this for a while, but I realized I'm never going to get to the technical level of the guys the players I wanted to be.
Right.
And I guess for some people there's a ceiling, and it was not for lack of trying, And then sometimes when I still admire these, brilliant technical players, but sometimes just the other thing is all some like these singers that have such a high range. And I think, man, if I could sing like that, or if I could play like that, but then sometimes I realize if I could, I'm the personality probably would never stop playing that. So I'd be that annoying guy, right? I want to sing like this, and playing right. It's like,
so that's got to be part of the motivation, I guess. You got to want to be that guy,
right,
to get there. And do you think? Because I know when I got to Berkeley, first of all, what you were saying earlier about like just sleeping, and breathing music is kind of the best part about both of those schools.
Absolutely.
Just totally being immersed. But I also just met people, and I think I said this on another episode, but that would just spend 8 to 10 hours practicing along with their classes. And I was just not that guy. So part of me just didn't want to work that hard, And I'm like, I want to get to a certain level that's good, and I want to be great on my instrument, but man, I don't know if I have it in me to be that guy.
And that's something I think everybody faces on their own. Where you made your peace with you made a decision early on. It's like, I can get to this level. I don't need to be if I'm at 90%, maybe I don't. Great to be 100% or whatever, be at the top of your game, but it's like I can learn other things. Like it's not just about. I remember reading an article. This is how old I am. It was in this. Is Uli John Roth, who was the original guitar player for the Scorpions, and he kind of went into kind of this music that most people don't understand, is what he says. But he said that my best advice for guitar players reading this, he said, try to become more of a musician than a guitarist.
Right.
And that's where what I'm taking from what you're saying is like you could, rather than just being this technical player on whatever instrument you are, there's so many other aspects of being a musician.
Right.
And that wasn't taught at GIT. I don't know if it was at Berkeley, that they're like real world, benefits.
Yeah.
How to work with people and, be on time and little things.
And that frustrated me for a long time because I always felt like it should be taught in college. And I guess to some extent I do still, especially Berkeley sort of at the time, and I guess now, and MIT for sure, like it kind of sells itself as preparing you for the contemporary music scene.
Right.
Yet,
but they're
just still a school. They're still just a school. And but then at the same time, I thought, well, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about it, and when I was younger and mad about it, and he was like, well, that's how the world weeds out people that just can't hack it.
That's true.
You know what I mean? You're going to get out with all those skills, but now you're going to go in the real world and either you're going to learn it or you're not.
Or you're not.
So I don't know. That calmed me down enough to be like, yeah, I guess I don't know. It'd be nice if they taught some of that stuff for sure. But I don't know. People are going to work it out one way or another, aren't they?
Yeah. And here, as we sit here in your studio where you've got a drum set, keyboards, guitars, bass, and all of your, your studio gear, it's like, it's a funny thing because where I'm getting at is like, you might tell people, like, maybe when you meet somebody, you might say, oh, I'm a bass player.
Right.
You're a studio owner, you're a producer,
Right.
you have all these other skills that, when you're focusing, and usually as a younger guy, when you're like, I'm going to learn the bass or I'm going to learn the guitar as best I can. And you've obviously opened yourself up to all these other avenues.
Right.
That's huge.
That's true. And that's, I guess the difference between like a performance major and like a songwriting major or something, it's like I always had a more general view of what I wanted out of music, and who has the time to do all that and be like a monster. Plus I played bass.
Prince.
Yeah, right.
Somehow.
Yeah. I mean, guys do it, for
Walter.
sure. Yeah, right. Walter, plus I played bass. So like,
one note at a time.
One note at a
That's
time.
What Dennis always says.
And having too many chops can lose you the gig too. You know what I mean? And, or maybe I shouldn't put it that way. Maybe it's like there's a lower level of chops that you need to function, really,
True.
And I played with Keiko Matsui for 12 years, and within that time, like we did a show with Al Di Meola one time. So
wow.
It's not like I don't have the chops, and I worked on all that stuff and I did it, but I feel like my career since then has just been slowly like less and less. And now I'm playing on a country gig where you don't play any chops on a country gig. You'll get, it's a great way to get fired. But at the same time, more musical and more musical. Not that Keiko Matsui wasn't musical, or those people aren't musical, but it's just a different kind of thing. And I kind of enjoy what I play more now, that I'm not just freaking out about like, oh, I need all these chops. You know what I mean?
I've seen guys with great chops that couldn't play eighth notes.
Right.
It's
exactly.
like, can you lock in with the drums and
maybe
feel this?
There's a lot more gigs for people who can just really play a song.
Yeah.
And don't play your guitar, play the song.
Right. That back to being a musician, not a guitarist. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Play the song. I never heard it that way. I like that.
So while you were there, was Eddie Van Halen a influence? Has he been an influence on you? I did see a solo online of you doing some hammer-ons and some Eddie stuff.
Really?
Yeah, you were.
Oh,
you had a big solo intro
and
to
during the gig with Dennis. Yeah. So backing up just a hair, one of the things I said, everybody had to put their little piece of it when Eddie passed, and I said that his influence for our generation was inescapable. And I said, if there's any rock guitar player that says he was not influenced by Eddie, he's lying.
Right.
I mean, it was the breadth of what he brought to the table with, his...
Or he doesn't realize it.
Yeah, true. That's what someone else mentioned. I heard someone say something about that, the influence, whether you realize it or not, but it's like, it's just, it's in the air. All those things that he kind of brought into the rock vocabulary, and a lot of these things you almost had to. It's like, you want to be taken credibly as a guitar player, you had to be able to, do the triplet hammer-on thing. It's
right.
And then, it became so diluted with so many people doing it, and it doesn't take away from him.
Yeah.
But
when you hear him do it, it's like a whole other level than most guys.
Yeah.
He's so just harmonically, like he's just taking it to all kinds of, oh man, I'm getting chills as I'm talking about it.
And I remember, Eric, when that album came out, I'd just been playing guitar when Van Halen 1. I think I'd been playing guitar for about half a year, maybe. Could maybe play GCD and B7 from the Mel Bay book, but the hardest chord ever, B7 or F.
Yeah, F.
But somebody, there was a guitar player in the high school that everybody kind of looked up to, and he was the guy. And I remember he was saying, "No, you should get this. You go buy this Van Halen record." And he even played a little bit of Eruption for me on like a cassette. And I'm like, because this is all one guy. And at the time, I'm like, it didn't hit me as anything because I didn't know anything about what guitar playing was. Right. I'm like, that when he first did that hammer-on section, the tapping part, it was like a fugue, and nobody played guitar like that at all. And it was people were like, how does he do that? I said, overdubbed. And so I bought the record, and I went home and I dropped a needle on, it starts with the horns and it goes into Running with the Devil. And I got about halfway through the song, and I'm like, I don't like this. I put it away. I'm like, I think it might have been Roth's voice more than anything, but it just wasn't, I couldn't take it. And, like a year later, it's my favorite record, that kind of thing. But,
I wasn't a big fan either. Actually, I liked Hagar better, honestly. Like 5150 was like, whoa. Like when that came out, it was just like, so, I was a fan of like pop music, and it was just more of a pop record, kind of rocked out. Those songs are just more poppy.
And I think that Hagar kind of allowed Eddie to be, his scope of composition was broadened, and he had a guy that could sing everything that he was playing.
Right. Yeah.
And and nothing against Roth. I actually love them both. And I will say, as much flack as David gets for his live vocals, I mean, you go back and there's plenty of isolated tracks online from the first record. He was killing in the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, he has great vibrato. His pitch is great. He has those crazy screams, and he's his claim to fame is more of his showmanship and as a front man, but he really could sing. He killed in the studio.
Oh man, for sure. And I look back now, and I've been watching all kinds of videos because this is going to air in a week or so, but he just died yesterday. So Facebook is just video after video, and like I look back now and I appreciate it so much more now. But I was watching I think Ain't Talking About Love from somewhere in the 80s, and like David Lee Roth is killing, and like how does he make that high screechy sound? Like I've never heard that sound before, and just that sound alone puts him in an echelon of singers that like
that's a distinguishing
there's
feature.
His place. I mean, nobody else can do that. That's legendary.
The crazy thing is that guy his name right now, Ralph Saines, who Michael Diamond from Steel Panther, he can do it to a T.
Right.
It's crazy. It's like some weird. We used to all try to imitate that. Right? The only way I could do was like inhaling, and it was I knew this was not good for my throat. Right? And it didn't sound like Roth anyway. But, but
that was.
And that's another thing. I just thinking about the Atomic Punks. I remember, that late 70s, early 80s when Eddie just came out of nowhere and just leveled the playing field, raised the bar. But I then fast forward to like the early 90s, maybe when the Atomic Punks were kind of coming up in LA. And I had a buddy of mine come down from Alaska, and we went to go see them at the Whiskey. They were so good, and you kind of get caught up in this. When you're seeing, it's kind of like I've taken it for granted, like Eddie's ability. It's like that. Then you see a guy who's really playing it almost as well as it possibly could be.
Right.
And they've always had brilliant guitar players. When you're seeing some guy 10 feet away from you playing that stuff, and you see how incredible it was. You're
right.
Like, and he did that shit 20 years ago. You're like, this is just out of nowhere. And he was, it's another point I saw someone make today. When Eddie did all this stuff, he was really just a kid, like early 20s, and hadn't fully developed yet. And he already had these monster chops and ideas.
Yeah.
Every album, there was a new mind-blowing guitar technique to, unveil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool stuff.
It's pretty great. So you mentioned Alaska a couple of times, and I'm always fascinated with people from Alaska. That's my one state I haven't been to.
Really?
And I definitely have to get there.
There's approximately 2 places you can play in the whole state, so I'm sure there is a big country music base up there. Up there with Dwight.
Yeah. Well, I'm putting it out in the universe.
There you
Let's go to Alaska.
I had hoped to back up a hair. I guess I was born in Alaska, but born and raised in a little town outside of Fairbanks, Fairbanks is the second largest city in Alaska. At the time, had about 60,000 people, and we lived about 20 miles outside of town, 2 miles from the city of North Pole, Alaska.
Wow!
And my actual town was called Moose Creek.
Whoa!
And then my folks were both educators, and we grew up on Eielson Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
And like when I first moved to California, the first time I got pulled over, I had a North Pole driver's license. Son, you have your jog sled team here. I was like, and I said something this morning. He's like, really? I'm like, yes, sir. No, sir.
Right. So did you do like music in high school? I
don't go into too many boring details, but when I was a kid, like 13 through, I grew up playing baseball, like Little League, like everybody did. And that's a misunderstanding or something that should be clarified about Alaska too. It's, that the summer is essentially June, July, August, a little bit of September. And, but the daylight, there's 20 hours of daylight. The solstice on June 21st, there's literally like 23 and a half hours of daylight.
Right.
So the sun kind of dips, but it's like this outside at midnight, it's crazy. They have what's called the Midnight Sun Game, which the semi-pro baseball team in Fairbanks, the Gold Panthers, they start the game at midnight with no artificial lights.
Wow.
I think one time they've had to have artificial lighting, but
wow.
But the flip side, of course, is mid-November through mid-February, it's pitch black for 20 hours a day.
Wow.
And when you're a kid going to school or when you're working, you look out the window at like 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a little bit of sun, and but it goes down at 2. So by the time you're off work or out of school, it's pitch black again. And being born and raised there, that's all I knew. So it wasn't weird to make people are always saying, "How did you live like that?" It's like, well, it's what we did.
Right. Yeah.
But I had friends that come up to the military base, Air Force Base, every 18 months. I'd have new friends. But it's like people would come up there and just freak out because like they had to put tinfoil on their windows and trying to get some sense of darkness to sleep. And in the winter, it's black all the time. It's depressing. Can be. But so my thing in the summers was playing. We fished all the time, of course, but my thing was baseball.
Cool.
And I was a pitcher. I was never like a really tall, big kid or anything, but I had really good aim. I'm really accurate, and didn't really have much of a fastball, but I had really good control and had a good curveball. And then somebody started teaching me to throw. It was a slider, and I messed up my elbow, and started having a lot of trouble with it. My claim to fame is I was a starting and losing pitcher for the All-Star team 2 years in a row, and I threw a no-hitter one year. But it was pretty kind of cool. Dang. But we went to the doctor, and they said a fractured growth center in my right elbow, and he said you can't play baseball anymore. And my mom kind of joking, well, what should he do now? And he's like, you should think about playing guitar. And it was just like the weirdest comment, right? And I was like, oh, what the doctor said. And so shortly after that, in the next school year, I signed up for like beginning guitar, and my parents had bought me this Sears guitar.
Nice.
God bless them. Like $24.99, I think it was, in the catalog. Did you ever have a Sears catalog?
Yeah.
And
I'm old enough.
You'd see this picture. Oh my God, I'm just covered this plastic guitar. But I got it and had I think it was nylon strings at the time, or I can't even remember, but it was junk. But I tried my best to figure out how to do something with it. So the school year started, and my parents, my dad was the superintendent, so he knew all the teachers and everything. But the music teacher, he had my older brother, my older sister, 1 year and 2 years older than me, both played. She played flute, he played trumpet. So he knew the family and everything. And he looked at this guitar and he said, you take this home and you say, this is firewood. I need a real guitar. So my real guitar ended up being it was an Epiphone, but it was called an Epi. The headstock just said EPI.
Oh, weird.
That's kind of funny.
I'll have to look that up.
Don't. It's probably collectible now.
Yeah.
But
I got my first guitar out of Finger Hut. My first electric.
Finger Hut.
Yeah,
I forgot about
the
that
Finger Hut catalog. It was a Harmony guitar.
Oh yeah.
And it came with a little plastic amp, which is but eventually me and my brothers tore it all apart and built other things out of it.
Nice.
But, and then I got that. That was my second guitar ever.
Right on.
The Fender Squire that's now hanging in my studio. But I'm familiar with the junk that comes out of catalogs.
Yeah. And so I was learning a little bit of guitar, and then I started playing. There was a bass player that was also in the guitar class with me. He'd already played bass for a couple of years, and his dad was a guitar player. And one day, he said, "You want to come over on Saturday?" I was like, "Sure." And I literally in one day, he was like getting sick of me. He's like, "Come on, can we do something else?" I learned everything he knew on guitar. It's like I was like a lot of young kids, I was like a sponge for it. It's like, give me this, I want everything. And a couple of weeks after that, he said, "Oh, my dad's knows a guy that's selling a guitar. It's a Fender Strat, and it's like $400." And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I'm pretty sure I didn't pay for it myself. I don't honestly remember. I'm sure my parents must have bought it for me, but $400. And it has that, those sexy cases with all that, it's like they're all pimped out. It's orange felt. I still have that. And I still have the guitar too. And this kind of relates back to the Eddie thing. And in the sense that, I bought this stock Stratocaster, and shortly afterwards I had somebody, carve it out and throw a humbucker in there. It was like the Seymour Duncan Invader, and then, somebody carved it out and I wanted to get a Floyd Rose, and they said, "Oh, we low stock in Alaska of anything."
Right.
But like, well, we've got this Kahler, and I'm like, all right. And I actually came to really like Kahlers later, but this one was this one wasn't happening. But
right.
And I put a couple of micro switches in it for God knows what, a phase switch and a coil split or something. But that guitar moved to Dallas with me and back to Alaska, and it was just so thrashed. I think I put it in a case, just forgot about it for a couple of years. And then I had a really good friend who was working for Fender, and he said, send me that one. I'll see what I can do with it, and I'll build another one for you. I have this great parts caster. It's like, one of those things like,
That's
I got it one piece at a time.
Right.
It's really a cool guitar. But
Wow.
he sent back the 79 Strat to me, the big headstock, and it was okay. And then a couple of years later, another buddy of mine wanted to say, I'll work on it for you, and just never was happening. It just sat there next to me for a while with no bridge, no strings, but it's like sentimental value kind of.
Yeah.
And then at one point I'm like, I just need room. Like, get rid of this thing. And another buddy of mine said, you mind if I just take it then and see if I can do something with it? I said, you could saw it in half and burn it up. And if it messes up, man, it's all good. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And he did an amazing job on it. He sent me pictures he texted me, your guitar's on fire right now. I'm like, we'll put it out. He's like, no, hold on, it's a good thing. And he's dragging across gravel, and it looks so amazingly distressed. Then I got a new bridge for it after NAMM. A really cool Vega Trem hooked me up with an amazing bridge.
Wow.
And it's a great guitar that I plan to take out on the road with Dennis this year. And it's like,
wow.
I'm in a weird place right now where, we'll come around to this too. I'm playing acoustic guitar,
Right.
A gig every Friday at home. But
Yeah,
I have not played electric guitar through an amp in 5 months. And I'm at the point now where I'm almost scared. It's like, how bad a thing's going to be when I pick it up again. But,
yeah.
On one hand, it's, everyone says, oh, you play a lot of acoustic guitar, it's going to get your chops way up. It's like, well, I'm sitting playing chords and strumming. It's like,
Right.
I'm not, so
Right.
I mean,
You're not shredding.
yeah.
You're not doing your Eddie Van Halen licks.
Well, that was the thing that I did too. Like, I'm trying to play some Van Halen stuff. I'm like, oh my.
Yeah, it's a trip. Yeah,
Very
I played
humbling.
I played my first gig, like not this last weekend, but the weekend before, and it was like a 4-hour casual, as we call them here. It was a proposal party, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
But with Dwight, I play everything with a pick, and I haven't used my fingers in almost 3 years, really. So after spending and I haven't really played that kind of gig in a couple of years either. So I had to kind of relearn all, Brown-Eyed Girl and stuff,
Right.
Stuff I've played a million times, but I'm like, I just haven't done it forever. So after spending like 5-6 hours during the day practicing,
Are your
I
fingers
barely
raw?
had any fingers left. Yeah, and like blood blister and like
And which hand is worse when
just right hand for sure. Yeah, because like this hand, I still play all the time.
Right.
But I use a pick, so like no calluses left.
Yes.
And, oh my gosh. So I made it through 3 sets, and the last set I had to play a pick on. I was like, I can't do it. I'm going to kill my, this is going to bleed eventually.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
he's bleeding for his craft.
Yeah. But other than that, it came back relatively.
Like riding a bike.
I think you're going to be fine. Especially somebody who's played so many shows. I mean,
It's funny you mentioned Brown-Eyed Girl too, because it's like, I started doing a thing where I would have like contest winners, like 3 people would submit 3 songs. I'd pick one out of the 3 and do it. And usually I get pretty interesting songs. And somebody had sent in, it was like 2 songs that were pretty obscure and Brown-Eyed Girl. I'm like, I had almost said to somebody online recently, it's like, I will never play, Brown-Eyed Girl or Margaritaville, or it's like some of these songs that, that they're the songs you hear everywhere. We've all played them a million times. People love them. They're classics for a reason, but it's like, it kind of feels like you're killing yourself when you do it. And I said, well, my wife and both my daughters have brown eyes. Like, I can make this work. And then I end up playing one of the obscure songs. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's tricky. I've played so many bar gigs and that song so many times that you just, after a while, I'm like, all I want to do is make you happy. Like, it's not,
and that's the thing. That's our role.
Yeah.
I have not in many, many, many years, thank God, played a gig where I feel like this sucks. This is just working right now. It's like, we're very fortunate with what we do that we, I had a bass player friend that used to say, I don't care what song it is. If I hate it, I can find one thing in there musically about this song that I like, and I focus on that and get through it. Mm-hmm. And it could be somebody's favorite song out there.
Yeah. And when I was younger, like in my mid-20s, I was playing in a band, and it's weird now because I play with a country icon, but I was not really a fan of country music back then, and for a
you're in
lot
your
of
20s.
reasons. Yeah, exactly. and I was a jazzer then too, but I just remember being in this cover band, and we played at this I'm from Denver, so there was this little cow town out in the middle of nowhere, and they wanted country, and luckily this band knew like 3 or 4 country songs, and I was never more happy to play country than that night and to know some country. And it's like when the crowd is in it, it doesn't even really matter. Like, you know, we're kind of in it just for that energy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God we know something.
Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than that. Yeah. I was like, well, do you play any of this? Well, no.
No, I know. It's a drag.
And that's a funny thing about country too. It's, you know, in the last 10 or 15 years, the new country, I should say, I'm sure Dwight's probably not this way, but you know, a lot of it sounds eerily similar to 80s rock.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, I used to work for a guy. And my first band I was ever in, Chuck Hughes, was he's listening. It was in Denver, and now he has a band called the Hillbilly Hellcats. If you're into rockabilly, cool. And but this was a cover band, weddings. So he was all like, Eric, what's old to rock and roll is brand new to country.
There you go.
And then cut to like that year, Garth Brooks was huge and had like an NBC special, like his concert at prime time. And at the end, they take 2 acoustic guitars and wreck them, bash them together and destroy them. I'm like, there it is. What's old to rock and roll is brand new to country. You know?
I remember somebody, either Garth said it himself or they were singing about his show. It's like, it's like kind of like a Kiss concert now. It's like, you know,
right, yeah.
He's flying out of the crowd and stuff. It's like,
right. Yeah, totally. You were talking about your Facebook Live thing, and it's every Friday at 7.
Every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. My family and I had been in Mexico. We'd have a timeshare at Cabo every year in March. And while we were down there, we had just been in Vegas. We played March 5th in Vegas. So we'd all been in that cesspool of Fremont Street afterwards. You know, get any germ imaginable was there.
Right.
Then we flew to San Diego and played El Cajon on the 6th. And I had a couple of gigs. I think I was supposed to play the 8th and the 9th somewhere in the Midwest. And so my family was going to go to Cabo ahead of me. Mm-hmm. And then those gigs started dropping. And so, well, those aren't happening. So I was able to go with them. We were supposed to come back, and I was supposed to go right from home. And the next morning fly, I had gigs in Portland and Seattle. And my family was going to fly up to Seattle because I had family coming down from Alaska. It was going to be this amazing family reunion, you know? And of course, as we know, none of those things happened. But,
right.
So I'd been home after we got back from vacation, trying to stockpile as much toilet paper as we could. You know?
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Oh my gosh, I know. We actually went to Costco and bought some right before all this started happening, and we can go about 4 months on one of the Costco things. You know? So we were like, thank goodness, you know, that we bought this, but it was
Put
crazy.
a quarter slot on your bathroom and say, you guys can welcome to come over here.
I know.
It's a pay toilet, sorry. But I don't know what it was I had seen initially, but somebody had done a live stream event of some sort, and I thought, oh, I'm kind of going stir crazy already, like being home for a week or whatever. It's like,
right.
I'll just sit at my stool and acoustic guitar. I'd been doing acoustic gigs around town with Adrian Galish for about the last 3 years at that point, and
right.
So I had some. I up to that first Friday I played, I'd only done in my life 3 gigs just by myself.
Wow.
And so this was a bit of a challenge, and it was kind of fun knowing that really the only person in the room is my wife, right?
Right.
And you're staring at this, at your iPhone or but hoping people are out there. But I said, I'll start at 7:00 and I think I was supposed to play like 15 songs or something. And things have gone a long way from there, but there was, 350 people showed up the first night, and I was like, well, wow, this is not what I really expected. I'm kind of overwhelmed, and did it again the next week. Great response again. And so then it kind of took off, where then I moved out into the living room and raised the, there's still no production value. The thing about what's
it's
been
definitely
really
better though.
Yes. It's been great for me. Several things to talk about there, where I was fortunate, lucky, whatever it might be, on 2 levels, where originally I didn't say, I'm playing a gig on Saturday, come see me play my show. I just called it it's the acoustic happy hour hang. Right. It's just basically as if you're sitting in my living room with me and I'm playing guitar. I'll stop in the middle of a song. I make mistakes almost every song. And, sometimes I'll play half a song and we'll break into some other conversation, but it's very loose. Yeah. And I have, I've learned a couple of things about myself where people have said, oh, you're too hard on yourself, because it's like I'll get upset with myself if I can't remember the chord change, because I tend to make lyric sheets and think, well, I know the chords. Right. And in the middle of like playing 30 songs, like, it's like, where's this going? And totally lose your flow, but they said, we don't really care if it's perfect. We're just kind of hanging out. Everyone's one of the jokes I always say, because I'm playing by myself, I don't use a looper pedal or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if I drop out to play a solo, there's no bass, there's no foundation, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm just going to keep playing the chords behind the solo, and you guys can drink while I solo. That's the solo.
Nice. Yeah.
And it's just become a thing. It's become very, a little community is built up. There's a new page with about 300 people on it that I've seen friendships develop out of this thing. And
right.
I'm fortunate in that, I have, this sounds egotistical, but it's a very small level. I have a national fan base just from touring, as you would with,
right.
We
right.
And so it's all about, after show, hanging out in a hotel bar for 15 minutes or 15 hours, whatever, and just engaging with people. And,
right.
Especially Jimmy Leahy, the other guitar player in Dennis's band. We're kind of the toxic twins. After the show, we hang out and talk to everybody. And
nice.
All of a sudden, it's been, I put up this live stream thing, and half the people that are on there, or 2/3 of the people, are people I've met around the country that I said hi to after a show one time. And it's been really kind of cool to see that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not building any chops on this gig. Vocally, I think I am. I'm
right.
And I'm doing 3 hours a night. Sometimes it gets to be pretty hairy. I'm doing a lot of stuff from, one of my buddies says, you're doing a lot of songs from the deep end of the pool. Although I tuned down a full step. Because there's no way I could sing all that high rock stuff for 2 hours or 3 hours. So that's like I was saying earlier, but I always wanted to be that guy that could sing up there. Mm-hmm. I can't quite get there, so I cheat and pull the key down.
right, yeah. And it's just you can do whatever you want.
Right.
It's your show.
That's the thing.
Well, it's really fun. I mean, I've been kind of enjoying that on the weekends anyways, because a lot of people are doing it, so now you get on Facebook and it's just like you can bar hop just right on your, like there's so many, and it's getting less and less as people get back to work and whatever it feels
Things are opening up a little bit, yeah.
But it's been kind of a cool thing, and who knows where we're going after this. This might be a big part of the future. So, and you've already got this established now, and
that's where I was lucky to kind of get a firm, plant my. I can't find my metaphors tonight, but I set up shop there at 7:00 on Friday, which is pretty prime time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've not missed a show in 30 weeks. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Kind of afraid to let it go,
Yeah. But, and your wife kind of tends to, do you get mad because she's stealing the spotlight?
Absolutely. I'm like, honey, whose show is this? She's awesome. And it's funny because when back to that first show, I'm like, well, I'll face the camera here, and then if you could sit just over here, you could like bring me drinks and stuff, like Sammy Hagar, like I'll be the waitress, that kind of thing, and I can call for you. You can bring me a Moscow Mule, and you can sit over here and you can like keep up with the comments because there's gonna be like 6 people watching, right?
Right.
And it's it's the 2,500 comments a show or whatever, and it's like you can't keep up with everything.
Right.
So she kind of she helps me with all the lighting and everything, and I'm a wreck. But I mean, it's funny. I don't know how you are with things like this, but at a Dennis DeYoung show, anywhere we play, unless I have friends that are in the room, like backstage with me, then sometimes I get nervous. But usually it's like I'm ready to go. I can't wait to get on stage.
Right.
Any local gig, whether it's me playing by myself on Friday or whatever it might be at a duo or band stage, I lose my mind like half of. I'm like just a wreck,
Right. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh my God, just settle down."
But it definitely adds. Yeah, I'm a wreck just doing this. Like I'm like, let's make a podcast. That sounds fun, and I'll just interview my friends and stuff. But I don't know. I feel like I'm having a great time now, but sometimes the interview is my least favorite part about it, because like I gotta do, it's a lot of research, and that's pretty fun. But it's like you just never know how it's gonna go. Am I gonna get what I need from?
We're both in the hot seats.
Yeah, I know. Like so. I'm a wreck all the time. But
nice.
So you've mentioned him a bunch, and so your main gig is Dennis DeYoung.
Yes.
And you're probably completely tired of telling the story, but it's kind of amazing how you got this gig. They've made movies about it, but you're like the actual guy, not the lone actual guy now. There's
right, and the actual guy in that case, was Ripper Owens from Judas Priest, was that story. But a similar thing, and people say, oh, it's kind of like they made a movie about you. It's like, well, I was a few years behind the curve, unfortunately.
Right.
But similar story in some ways, and the backstory is I had been in a Styx tribute band here in LA called The Grand Illusion, and that's the only band other than some top 40 bands in my early 20s kind of thing, or rock bands. I never sang in any bands. But it's one of those things you pass the ball. It's like, okay, you sing 3 songs, you sing, but no one was like a singer.
Right.
And I remember I was still in high school, and some Styx song. I think it was Too Much Time on My Hands. I'm like, have a similar voice to that guy. I can sing that. So, and then I had been in and out of a bunch of faceless, nameless, went nowhere bands in LA. And I saw an ad for a Journey tribute band. This is probably back in like 93 or 4. And I thought, this is back in Music Connection, you know, like, I remember seeing this ad. I thought, tribute band, that's what's weird is that if there's a guy that can sing like Steve Perry, why wouldn't he be doing it? You know, it's like, and on his own.
Right.
And I went to go, actually, no, I think I called the number or whatnot, and I had to record something. It might have even been cassette at the time, right?
Right.
And I had to record like Playing Along with Stone in Love or something and send it to him. But it said, they wouldn't even tell me who the singer was because he was some famous guy, right? I'm like, whatever. And they said, well, you know, he's backing out of the whole thing. We're not going to do anything. But I'm like, well, that was my first failed, foray into tributes. But then I saw an ad for a Styx band. I thought, well, that'd be kind of fun. And I went to go and met these guys and we all clicked and started work together. And we played off and on around town in different lineups for 6, 7, 8 years, I think it was. And at points we would morph into a Boston tribute band. And I had played in a Journey tribute band for a while too. But anyway, so I had the last gig we had done in the Styx tribute was at the Paula Casino down by San Diego area. And somebody's girlfriend in the band had a camcorder or something set up by the sound booth. And it's very distant video, but the audio turned out fantastic. And it was a good band. And the songs were okay, so we had they did the heavy lifting. But so I at one point, I'm always I'm not exactly an early adopter of technology. So at some point, I got the means to digitize the VHS or whatever it was, and so I started doing that. And I'm like, oh, this new YouTube thing, everyone's putting on the YouTubes. I'll put some stuff up there, and I put like six of the songs on there. And literally 2 days later, I got a call from Danny Wilde from the Rembrandts. That was doing he was going to be working on a film that involved some Styx music, and he wondered if I'd be interested in working with him. Of course, and nothing ever happened there. But 2 months later, I got a call from this guy, and I'm not good on the phone, as many of my friends know. But
speaking of technology, the whole phone thing, man,
it's kind of new to me. I can take pictures with it.
So where are you talking to here?
And so this guy had called me. I got the message. This is so and so. I'm a producer, manager, blah, 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 and I work with somebody. And then blah, blah, blah. Give me a call. I'm like, the nerve of that. Call me at home. I don't know who you are. And I'm like, I'm not calling him back. And then 2 days later, he called again or something. And he emailed me. So I'm trying to reach so and so, and so I Googled his email address, right? And it comes up Dennis DeYoung's website, right? I'm like, okay, I guess I will call him back, right? And the other thing is, that band, the band had not played in 6 years, and that's the only band I'd ever sang lead in. And so then finally I called the guy. We talked for like 45 minutes, and I was just like, this is pretty amazing. And he said, Dennis is looking to make some changes, and or what's your availability? What's your blah, blah, blah. And also, the first time in my life that being older was seen as a positive. And I was 23 at the time. No, but and they saw my Facebook profile picture. It was near Christmas, it was December 22nd. Had both my daughters, like my younger daughter's holding like a plastic pink guitar in front of the Christmas tree, and it's all cool. And like, it's a family guy. This is great. And anyway, I was wrapping up the phone call, and I said, well, what's the next step? And he said, well, if Dennis is interested, I'll give you a call. I'm like, okay, well, thanks for reaching out, and it's been fun, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And the next morning, 10 o'clock, whatever else, and my daughter's like, I had Dennis somebody on the phone. I'm like, what? And I grab the phone, and he's like, August, this is Dennis DeYoung. And I was like,
whoa.
No fucking way. And it was a trip. I'm a rock star.
So there are a lot of us out of work right now, waiting to get back to playing shows and touring. And I know I've had to do whatever I can do to take my mind off the situation from time to time. And one of the ways to pass the time is to catch up on some books you've missed. But if you're like me and you don't love to read, there's another way you can consume. Audible.com has thousands of titles to choose from, including audiobooks about music production, songwriting, the music business, music theory, instructional audiobooks, and biographies of your favorite musical heroes. But besides audiobooks, you can also listen to podcasts, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive audio originals you won't find anywhere else. Right now, you can get a free 30-day trial if you visit audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar. That's audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar, and you can catch up on your audio reading. I'd like to take a second to thank you for listening to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. As a new podcast, getting the word out is a vital part of what it takes to keep the show on the road, or off the road, as the current case may be. If you would like to support the podcast, all you got to do is subscribe wherever you listen. And if you have an extra minute or two, please leave a review. You can also share and follow the podcast on your social media apps. Okay, enough begging. I hope you're having fun. And once again, thank you for listening.
Styx was a very important band for me. They were, I'm not going to lie and say they were always my favorite band of all time.
Right.
But, and seriously, I remember hearing from the Grand Illusion album, the keyboard swell at the beginning of Fooling Yourself. And that's what the cool older kids were listening to. And I'm like, that sounds cool. And, and that remains one of my favorite parts. And then the set when I got to do the swell. But I talked to Dennis for a long time, and it was just, he had a lot of questions. He's also very suspicious of technology, and but the problem is plain to see too much technology.
Right.
But he said, I've seen this video of you, and he said, but anybody could, alter the audio on that, and if that's really you and you can sound like that, and you and me can make a sound together, then it's not an audition. You got the gig if we can do this. And because when can you be here? I'm like, it was December 22nd. I'm like, well, how soon you want to do? He goes, I want to move pretty quick on this. I'm like, well, it's almost Christmas, and it's like, I got plans. And he said, well, can you be here just after? I said, well, I got a New Year's trip planned also. We're going to Big Bear kind of thing. He goes, well, when are you going to be back? I'm like, well, January 2nd. He goes, then be here on the 3rd. And the next day I have he sent me a confirmation for my ticket. And I was like,
and where is here?
Chicago.
So he's
Chicago born and raised. Yep.
Wow.
After I got off the phone with him, I was like, holy crap, this is a real thing. And
right.
I immediately went into panic mode because I hadn't sang anything, and and that stuff, it's in my range. Tommy Shaw has a higher voice than I do by a little bit. I can sing most of what he does. Some of it is above what I'm comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And I had to beat myself up for a week singing 24/7, and and
totally.
Styx Greatest Hits is in my house constantly. The kids know every song. That's why my wife is playing it all in the car and everything. But I remember going to the airport and running through LAX, and they're like, passenger ZADRA, doors are closing. I'm like, no!
Oh man!
I was so freaked out, and Dennis had given me 3 songs to learn, and I knew them all already, of course,
right.
Blow the cobwebs off them. But it's like the big ones. I think it was Renegade and Blue Collar Man and Crystal Ball or something. But anyway, so I fly to Chicago, and I'm just all freaked out and excited. And it's 2 things. It's January 3rd is the middle of winter, and winter is really a thing in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to come over at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, that's 8 o'clock my time. No one sings.
And sing that high stuff. Oh.
And so I hardly slept at all because I'm so nervous, And so I go down to the lobby of the hotel, which is 2 minutes from his house, and he pulls up. This Mercedes pulls up. I could look at it looks like him. And the trunk opens. I'm walking out there, and I put my guitar in the trunk, and I open the door. I said, good morning. He goes, we'll see about that. I was like, so here's the thing real quick too, to kind of take a step back. Dennis has kind of and largely this I would attribute to the VH1 behind the music thing, or he's often portrayed as being egotistical, control freak. And, the thing is, he's a highly intelligent man. He's very well read. He can speak on any subject. He's very quick-witted. He's very sarcastic, which is kind of a Chicago thing.
Right.
So I think what comes across once you know him, it's that sarcastic wit or if you don't know him, it can come across as arrogance, I think. And so but right away, I'm like, oh shit, this guy, what's his deal? It's like, we'll see if it's a good morning or not.
Right.
And a small talk on the 2 minutes to his house, and then we go up into, he's got a gated community, his amazing house and all this, and we go into the kitchen and it's kind of like small talk for a minute. He goes, well, go downstairs. And he's got his amazing studio in the basement, and it's funny, we're walking down the stairs and he's got these movie posters on either side, and an odd combination, or quite a wide range of films.
Right.
And he saw me like make a face at one of them, and he said, "Oh, I just want you to know these aren't like my favorite movies. These are all the films that my music's been used in." I'm like, "Oh, okay,
cool.
Makes sense." But and then you get down there, and it's very impressive. Of course, I'd never seen something like this. Gold records all over the wall, gold cassettes I'd never seen. There's the Roboto mask. There's all these amazing photos everywhere and everything, and he's got this great studio set up. And then there's a baby grand, and he said, "Well, get out your guitar, tune it up, everything. Sit down with me here at the piano." He said, "Put the guitar down. We're going to sing." And like 10:30 maybe, and I'm just like, I'm kind of in awe,
Yeah.
And so he sits down, and I'm sitting next to him. He starts playing Lady. That was like Tommy's big thing too. It's like, if you can hit the D note on Lady, you're in. And so it's like he starts playing, and I swear to God, my first thought was, I'm like, it sounds just like the fucking record. There's something about it. It's like, he's the guy, and it's like, you can play the same notes, but it sounds just like, I'm like, I was like,
Yeah.
And he opens his, and I've seen him do this for 10 years now. It's like, it could be, 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 8 o'clock at night. He always sounds the same. It's uncanny. One time I told him he's a freak of nature, and he said, "I prefer anomaly." But he just starts, and he's just playing it. I'm like, sitting there waiting my turn. And he's like, it goes to the B flat A, like, chorus is coming. He goes, "You ready?" "Yeah, let's see." And I'm like, and he just looks at me like, "Well, that was interesting." And he goes, let's try that again, shall we? And the second time wasn't much better. And I'm just like, what else is happening? And he gets up, and he's behind me, right? And I'm like, he puts his hands on my shoulder and just, "Look, I know that you don't see me the way I see me, and I know that you're nervous right now, and I'm waiting for the sword to slice off my head." But he said, he goes, "You're out here because I think you can do this." And he said, let's go upstairs. Let's relax for a minute. We'll come back. So we go upstairs, and we had coffee or something, whatever. Just kind of shoot the shit a little bit, and he goes, "Let's go back down. Let's try it again. Come on, we do this." And he told me later, he's thinking, "What have I got myself into with this kid? He can't even sing." So we go down there, and same thing. He sounds amazing. We get to the chorus, and I hit it. And he's like, "There we go, yeah." And I'm like, "Wow, that sounded pretty cool." We did it again, and he goes, "Yeah, this sounds really good." And he goes, "Now get your guitar." And we did a couple other things, and then all of a sudden he gets interrupted by a phone call, and it was his manager. And it turned out he was auditioning a bass player the same day, but the scheduling got messed up, and it's by somebody. And Craig, the bass player, was sitting at the airport waiting for a ride. Nobody knew he was there.
Wow.
So he arranged for a car. He was there in about 45 minutes from that point. So Dennis and I were just kind of getting to know each other a little bit and talking about music and stuff. And so Craig gets there, he walks in, and we're sitting at this massive table, and Dennis is at the head of the table. I'm sitting like to his right, and Craig walks in, I'm like, "Hey, new guy." I got like 45 minutes seniority, right? I'm like, but bless his heart, he's a sweetheart of a guy, and he's a Nashville guy, bass player, and he is Craig Carter is his name, and he would get a lot of session work to replace female vocals on things. He's got this voice, right? So, and he comes from like a gospel R&B background, and he didn't know Styx from Adam, right?
Yeah.
But they gave him the 3 audition songs, and so he's got those, and we're literally walking, he's behind me, we're walking down the stairs to go do try the song again. And he's like, "Bro, you want me to take the high part?" I'm like, "Oh man, I think I love you." So rather than me hitting the D on Lady, now I can hit the A.
Right.
So it's, the F sharp, A, D triad.
Nice.
And it's so in his range effortlessly. It makes, it's like I said about you hitting that note on Bohemian Rhapsody. It's like, at least make it look hard. But we're sounding really good on the songs. And when we're doing Lady over and over, that's kind of like, it's a beautiful harmony, and he starts getting excited. He's like, calling his son, "Matt, come down here." And we'll come back to Matt in a minute too. "Come down here, listen to this." And we do it like 3 times, like, hey. He's like, "That's great." And he goes, "Suzanne, come down here." Tim, I had the manager come down. He's like, "Yeah, sounds good." And finally he gets his wife to come down, Suzanne, and he's like, "Listen to this." And she's like, He's like, what? That was pretty damn good. And she smiled. But the reason, so again, I put the videos on YouTube, and Dennis's son, Matt, kind of famously an insomniac. And it was not too many years, I think, after Journey had found Arnell on YouTube.
Right.
And so Matt was up one night, midnight, and he's like, Filipino Styx vocalist, tribute or something. He couldn't find it. But, going down the YouTube rabbit holes we've all done, eventually somehow it got to me. Mm. And he was like, wow. And I think I was doing Man in the Wilderness, which is one of my favorite songs of Styx, of Tommy's to sing. And so Matt called Dennis. It was like 12:30, and he was like at night, and he's like, "There better be blood." No one calls me this. And he's like, "Dad, you gotta go to your computer right now and watch this."
Oh,
and
that's amazing.
It was pretty unreal. So I always say, "God bless Matt DeYoung. God bless the internet. God bless YouTube." And thank you, Tommy Shaw.
Right. Wow.
And that's a point I want to make too, real quick. And that's the role I'm in is basically Dennis hired me so that they could start. Dennis for years was doing his solo show, and they didn't do any of the Tommy Shaw songs. Mm-hmm. And then he decided that when people go to see Styx, currently, he was saying that they're not getting the whole package because there's some songs of Dennis's that they don't do. Right. And Dennis doesn't do doesn't do any of the Tommy songs. Mm-hmm. So he said he wanted to deliver the whole package of a classic Styx performance. And I always say that I really just tried to do the songs with as much respect and as much passion. And, I think those songs are great, and it's to do them and to be on stage with Dennis. It's every night, man. I look over at some point and just go, I can't believe I'm, right. It's been a real thrill.
That's amazing.
But another fun fact: Tommy Shaw and I have the same birthday.
That's crazy.
9/11.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. So. It's amazing. I think it's also just this right time, right place, because he was just starting to I'm going to do the Styx thing again. And that's pretty awesome. So how much are you trying, like you say, you're doing it with respect, how much are you trying to emulate, or how much are you trying to be, you just naturally sound like him.
It's a similar,
as well, right?
Similar vocal timbre. Timbre. But, I did have some experience, mimicking Tommy's work, but it was never like a lot of the tribute bands. You have a guy who's trying to sound like somebody,
right?
And I was lucky in that it's just a very similar voice to mine, and I've learned.
And you look like him, and
there's that.
You're perfect.
But there's little things that I still I talk to Rudy about this a lot, where it's like I still don't. I've had I've watched a lot of things on YouTube, and I have had approximately 4 vocal lessons in my life, and I don't really understand a lot about singing, and I
interesting.
I try, I put in the time, but I really, there's a friend of mine who just moved back to LA. That's a vocal coach that I want to start working with soon. But there's a lot of things I was going to say, I've noticed, singing Renegade. There's sometimes I know if I have to smile or get more teeth into it to make the tone more similar, and there's so many nuances to singing that I'd never, I'm hitting it out with brute force now, kind of thing. Yeah. But I've always felt it more like, and this is not a false modesty thing or fishing for compliments, but honestly, that I you probably have the same way in some regards. When you hear a guy or anybody who's really sings, and you get that goosebumpy kind of thing, and it's that's a singer, and I feel like I'm more a guy who's hitting the notes, and I don't have that.
Right.
You hear this pure expression come out of people, and it's like, man.
Well, it's tricky as a singer as well, because what we're doing, because what so when I got the Dwight gig, I've sang my whole life, but this is a country gig for one, and it's the high singing part that I only kind of, maybe within a few years of getting the gig, had kind of figured out my own voice, because I was more of a low tenor, and I did a lot of R&B. I wasn't the rock singer. I wasn't a rock guy. More Sinatra was closer to what I would do. Okay. Yeah. And now here I am on this country gig with a Grammy-winning singer. Yeah. And it's me and him most of the night, just singing, and he likes it mixed to where it's almost a duet, and we're doing Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and all this classic stuff. And like,
That's
I remember
cool.
one time we were playing at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, and I walked in and we were in a hurry and we just had to get changed because the show was starting. And someone was in our dressing room, and I'm like, what's going on? And we're kind of held up for a second. And then I see the tour manager clearing the crowd. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's leading out Randy Travis. And
from your dressing room.
From the dressing room.
Way.
They're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Great. We get on stage and we're starting the show. And I look over on my side of the stage, and Randy Travis is sitting right there, 10 feet from me. And Dwight Yoakam's right there, and I'm singing in between two of the most iconic country singers, and I'm just like, how did I get here? But the point I was making is like, and kind of the same with you. You're singing. I'm singing parts that are on the record. I'm singing harmonies that are that I'm kind of assigned.
Right.
Most of the guys, like Dwight, on the other hand, is singing songs that were meant for his voice, that are in his key, and are truly from him. So that expression and those goosebumps come from him. I'm like a utility guy. You aren't. You're out front, but you're also just singing a song that was meant for someone else's voice.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
that's the kind of the difference between like creation and imitation in a way where, like you say, you're hitting you're fulfilling that role and hitting the notes
Right.
But you can, like I said, I try to do it with as much passion and try to put myself into that role. But ultimately, you're singing what was written by somebody else for their own voice.
And I've seen it on YouTube. I haven't seen you guys live, but I mean, it's
because you're always working.
I mean, I'm a busy dude.
It's the best excuse there is.
But I've seen it on YouTube much today, all day long. All day long, I've been watching you, and it's amazing. But it probably doesn't feel like it. So what you're expressing is what it feels like. It's not how it comes across. I'm sure.
Right.
You sound great. That's obviously the songs are great. You fit into that role perfectly.
It is a dream. I mean, it's a dream gig for me. It really is in every way. And I just feel completely blessed and fortunate. And all the guys in the band are really great players and great human beings. It's, I almost put his, shine and everything. Like it's really that way.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So are there any tricks what do you do to keep your voice in shape when you're out on the road? Well, first of all, do you guys go out for long periods of time, or are you kind of out and back every week? Or
that's a good point. It's basically weekend warrior stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, there was one crazy month. It was a great month of crazy in a way. Probably 6-7 years ago, where we had I was gone 26 days at a month, and that's never happened anything like that before. But typically, I fly out on Thursday and home on Sunday, and usually play Friday, Saturdays, and it's. We do about 65 shows a year, and sometimes it'll be 3, sometimes it's 1, but when I'm not playing with Dennis, if I have a weekend free, then I'm playing a local gig with Adrian doing acoustic stuff. But I have there's a vocal coach, if I can name names, Jamie Vandera.
Sure. Absolutely.
He's an instructor that I follow online, and he has this warm up course.
Oh, cool.
And I have that. It's like 8-minute exercises. And then there's another fantastic coach, Ken Tamplin. And he has these are, his is free on YouTube. I do those 2 exercises every single day.
Oh, cool.
Whether I'm singing or have a gig or not. And it's just one of those things where I sort of do it by rote after a while, but and they always that adage about, it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice makes perfect. And so I'm doing these exercises, and I don't know if I'm actually doing myself any favors at this point. So it's that's what I'm really starting to look. I've got to find, get some new help and some.
Well, I do have a guy. Actually, I got his name from Rudy as well.
Cool.
Because where I was kind of leading to is like I had to take some lessons, and I've sung my whole life and have records out, But it was the same thing, because I feel like it was the same feeling too. Like when I got on the gig, I was like, oh, this is like really a singing gig. It's really a singing gig, period. Like the bass parts, it's country music. It's pretty simple. It's not Al Di Meola, you know what I mean? Right. It's pretty simple. It's really about the vocals, and so I'm going to have to be great, And for me too, it was like I was in an instrumental band for years on the road, and I could party my ass off all night long and not care. I could, I could be hungover as I wanted to be and still play. The voice is not that. I had to start taking care of myself in a whole different way, and And
Dennis is real big on same thing. Like you were saying, this band is all about the vocals. Because anybody can play these guitar parts. Anybody can play this. It's like it's got to be. And I remember the first time I had whatever it was, where I had a couple. I've lost my voice a couple times in the last 10 years, for a week or so. But sometimes luckily, I think 2 of the 3 gigs where I had trouble, 2 of them were corporate gigs, and we just had Dennis do more songs. Or one time Craig sang Renegade. It was kind of cool. But the very first gig we did, there was they had like in these swag bags, and there's this stuff called Entertainer's Secrets, little spray, little tuxedo on it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like, that felt great. And so I'd bring it to every gig, and Dennis one time was like, what do you think that does for you? And I'm like, I think I could fly. It's like, it's artificial, but if I believe it, it'll work for me, right? But the first time I was struggling, he pulled me aside one time, and he was like, because I know your brother was here last night. And you guys had some beers after the show because your alcohol dry you out. He said, you got to start learning to play chess or something. You got to start. At the end of the show, you got to go back to your room. And it's like, he said that the life of a singer is the life of living without.
Yeah,
and he doesn't smoke or drink, and he's very careful about what he eats all the time. And at the end of the day, I'm a side guy for the large part, and it's not my name on the bill. Not that I respect it any less,
right? But
there's less pressure on me,
right?
And I feel like if I could only sing 3 songs, we'd still be fine. But I still want to live my life. But the older I get too, it's like I realize that I can't eat some of that. I remember when a buddy of mine turned 40, and he was like, "Oh man, I can't eat pepperoni pizzas anymore." I'm like, "Oh, it sucks to get old, right?" And now there's things like I find if I get I went and got scoped one time about maybe 6 years ago when I was having some issues, and they came out and they said, "Well, the good news is you don't have nodes." I mean, I'm on an old phone where I'd played for you. I said, I'm driving to this out in Glendale, I think, and I said, "This is my before," and I'm driving and singing to my phone. It's like and in the middle of it sounds like a fax machine. It's like like it's just terrible.
Wow.
And I was terrified, and then I said, "You don't have nodes, but you do have a lot of acid reflux damage." He said, and I was shocked to hear that. My dad used to have really bad GERD, and he stopped me when I'm wrong. He said, do you like red wine? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you like spicy food? Yeah. You like tomato-based food? Yeah. You eat a lot of chocolate? Well, not that much chocolate. He goes, well, 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know. It scared me. It's like, if you're going to do this, and I had some kind of antacid prescription at the time I used for like a month. And then I've been taking apple cider vinegar religiously.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And it's like, and especially if I know I'm going to be having a certain kind of food, it's spicy foods. I love Italian food, and I can't drink tequila before any gigs. But there's things that just, you have to be careful. And they said red wine is bad for, I don't know if it's me in particular, but they put the fear in me. It's like, you said that'll affect your chords for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so it's like when I'm a different person when I know gigs are coming. And it's like, I try to be more careful.
Yeah.
And if no gig, I'm not that careful.
Yeah, I hear that too. Yeah. Well, I can't, I don't drink coffee anymore. I can't do that. I've had to give it up though. I don't even drink caffeine when I'm on the road, just because of like any little thing.
Wow.
I feel like I need to be my head needs to be so in the game once I hit that stage.
Now for you, interrupt you real quick. Sorry. Like, is there anybody else in the band that could take your parts if?
Not the high stuff. Yeah. And that's the thing that
and that's critical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I gotta be there, and we're a lot the same. We go out usually on the weekends. It's like 3 to 4 shows a week, 2 to 4 shows, but for a while it was 4 shows every week.
Yeah.
But again, I'm like so out of what I normally think of as my range that it's like that stuff wears out faster.
And the travel and the hotels, all the air conditioning and everything.
Oh man.
I try to drink a ton of water,
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And then the no sleep too, because I don't know how you guys travel. So if we're on the bus, then it's, you have a 4 or 5 hour drive. Maybe you get some sleep, then you wake up and you go to the hotel, and can't get back to sleep for a couple hours. So then I get another 4 or 5 hours sleep there. And altogether, it's like, 9 or 8 or 10 hours, but
it ain't
it's
the
so
same.
broken up, and like everything you can do to just keep yourself healthy,
That's another thing that I've been fortunate with was, in the 10 years plus of doing this now, I've been on a bus 3 nights.
Oh, wow.
We fly everywhere. And then if it's a routing issue of, 150 miles or whatever, 300 miles, and we rent cars and drive that leg of it, but
yeah, got you. And so you're also Tommy Shaw, so you're fronting the band like when you're not just, okay, throw them a song. You're like, you got to front it.
Yeah.
Was that kind of intimidating at first as well?
Absolutely. and I still think I've probably said 10 words to the crowd in 10 years. Because I remember Dennis saying, you're not that comfortable with it, are you, with the speaking part? And I said, no. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what to say. And then he never did. And
so he expects you to talk too. And
no, I mean, he's like, you just sing your song and say hi and good night. And it's the point now. It's like, I mean, I started thinking, I want to start watching like Arnell, and I want to Kelly Hansen. That's an amazing job in Foreigner, because I can't imagine myself going up there and saying, yeah, this next song is Crystal Ball. We wrote this back in '70s. It's like none of these songs are mine. So how do I can say, well, this is my favorite song, or it's like, it's just how do you make it sound cool?
Right. Yeah. It's a thing. That's another thing too. It's not. You're now an entertainer. You're not just a guitar player.
And that's this last 29 weeks of. I mean, I'm fronting this. I'm the only person talking or singing all night, which takes its toll too on the voice.
For sure.
But I'm got 150 to 300 people out there. It's like I don't see any of them.
Yeah,
so it's giving me some confidence, but I don't know if it's still going to translate. I think it will.
Right.
And I'm just more comfortable being me now. I think, in a way,
well, you kind of have to find who you are too on stage and find your character that you're playing, so that you're not necessarily having to be you. You're like, this is who I am on stage. People
have always told me too. It's like your guitar is your binky. It's like it's like Clark Kent and Superman. It's like if I've got the guitar on, I run around, I have fun. If I'm on stage, people are saying, "You look like you're so happy." That's like that's my happy place. It's my family are on stage, and I'm playing songs that none of the. I don't want to sound dismissive, but none of the songs in their catalog are incredibly difficult on guitar. Right? It's but it's always about running back and getting back to your microphone in time.
Yeah.
But
it is a lot of chords.
Yeah,
there's a lot to remember. I mean, I was in Bostics for a while, so I'm very familiar, and it's a lot to remember. It might not be difficult, but it's lots.
Still gotta, And that's the funny thing too. It's, I remember when I got the gig, the drummer that I'd played with in the Boston, the Styx tribute, he's like, now you're playing the same songs. Like you've already been playing these almost as long as Dennis has. Like, not quite, but
right.
But it's, if the guitar's in front of me, I feel like I've got this special power, and I've got a barrier. Take it off, and I'm like, oh,
yeah, that happens to all of us. That's for sure.
And then it's like you got to get out there and do it.
Yeah. That's another thing that we kept talking about Rudy because we're going to get to why Rudy Cardenas, that has been on the show already. But he's great at that. He's like a front man, in fact, too good because, even when he's just hanging out at your house, he's got to be Mr. Frontman.
He's on.
No, he's great. But yeah, he's the guy to take lessons from on that, I would think. Because, it's intimidating when, we're both. I'm a bass player, and that's even bigger. I'm covered up even more. And I also was listening to his 2 latest records. Like one just came out in May.
Yes,
in
April. Yeah, that was a thrill too.
Awesome.
We didn't get to write with him, which was kind of disappointing.
Right.
But guys in the band are on every track, and I think I'm singing on almost every song. I'm playing guitar on some, and just I was there with him tracking stuff. And it's like me and Dennis and Jim Peterick around a microphone singing. Like, this is pretty cool.
This is awesome.
And there's one of the rock songs, like it starts with just singing, and he goes, just give me like the tenor B scream right here. Okay, because you're in there. like that's me.
Well, the record is great. It's very Styx, man.
Yeah,
it's old school,
completely.
So cool, man.
And his voice. I mean, there's some things live too where it's like you sound better than you did when you recorded that 35 years ago.
I know. I was noticing that too. It's like, how old is he?
He's 73.
73. I mean, that record sounds just the same as it would if it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That big first single, East of Midnight. It's like that. That sounds like it could have been on Grand Illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great tune. And what's the other one? With All Due Respect.
Yes.
Check that one out. Very cool. Well, we keep bringing up Rudy, and because we all did a record together, and called Waiting for Monday, with a band called Waiting for Monday, And so we should probably talk about that a little bit because it's still on iTunes. And still on Spotify. You know, that's kind of the cool thing about putting out a record now. Even if it's out, like my record, I haven't even done one in 10 years, but it's still up there. It's not like it's out of print. You know what I mean?
Right.
Go get it. And this record is not that old. It's still pretty new. But
February 14, which I mean, it seems like that was this year, right? Yeah.
Oh man,
it seems like last year to me.
Incredible. Well, it's because it took like 5 years to make. No, I don't know. It didn't take 5 years, but it took a long time.
It took five weeks and $13.
But how did all that come about? Because it really started with you.
It really comes down to it's again a kind of a networking thing, who you know and all that, and a good buddy of mine, Jeff Scott Soto. He's been with Frontiers for on and off for almost 30 years. Phenomenal singer, a good friend of mine, and he was
in Journey for a minute. Right?
Yes, yeah. He sang and he fronted Yngwie's band when he was like 17.
Wow.
And then he's done had a long solo career. He was in Journey for one tour. He's currently been with Sons of Apollo for the last couple of years. And another guy who still has incredible range after singing for 30 some years. But he was taking on kind of an A&R role for Frontiers, looking for new talent. And he's like, hey, I think we can do something with you. He goes, would you want to do a solo record? And expecting me to say, yeah, this is fantastic. And I'm like, well, let me think about it because I don't really think about it.
It's the dream, man. You're getting signed.
If it's here, sign here, and now you're the guitar player. You're probably the bass player. I could never play drums. So you're the singer. You're the songwriter. You do the album art. You do all the everything. I'm like, I'm not that guy. I've always been tribal in a way. It's like I want my 5 guys. And, even again, back to the tribute things, it's like sometimes we rehearse on like Tuesday nights, whatever it was, we go 7 to 10 someplace in some small room and loud and sweat it out.
Right.
But my wife would say, these songs are 30 years old and you've been playing them for 20 years. Why do you need to practice them? I'm like, I just want to make loud noise with my buddies. And it's like, it's our little pack, us against the world. So then I said, I don't think maybe I could do something with somebody else. And he said, well, I'm going to pitch Rudy to them too. And he said that when they heard, I think it was the album that you did with Rudy, or you produced for Rudy.
Yeah, I produced and co-wrote all the record.
And my understanding is that then they said, well, we like this, put him with August. And they didn't know that we'd played in, Rudy and I had been in that Journey tribute band off and on for a couple of year together. And so he and I were both like, yeah, I would love to work together. We've been talking about it for years off and on. And this kind of was that. And that so he said, well, we'll work together. Well, we'll do this. We'll sign this deal, whatever. And of course, Rudy, I knew you as well, but Rudy had known you for years and worked with you. And you bring not only the bass and vocal, but the production and songwriting aspect to it. Right. And so we decided we were going to do this thing. And from my perspective, I'll say this, and Rudy, I remember telling me one day, he's like, I'm the laziest guy in the world. And I was like, oh no. Super talented guy. And he'll tell you. So he told me right straight from the horse's mouth, right? So but I remember having a conversation one day, probably maybe even when Jeff was there, but like, what do you foresee for the lineup? And, even when it's just to do a solo thing, it's like, well, I definitely want to have, I don't play keyboards at all. I could play chords if I, it's like, I don't want it to be like a, 80s rock, I love that music, but I don't want to be completely one dimensional about it. So I want to have, different options. And I knew Walter from Jam Night, basically.
Right. Walter Eno. Multi-instrumentalist.
Incredible talent that, to the extent I wasn't even fully aware until having worked on this record together. But Rudy said, well, do you have a guy in mind for like a utility guy? I'm like, absolutely. I said, Walter's the guy. And Rudy had done something with him recently also. And he's like, that'd be perfect. So we got Walter involved. And Walter brought an immediate sense of focus to everything, where it's like he is a studio owner as well. Right. And he works really fast, where we'd throw out an idea and be like, okay, well, he's got it demoed, like as we're sitting there discussing it. Right. And we got a lot of things done in a hurry. But, you had done a lot of the early writing with Rudy, and then I brought some things in. There were a lot of collaborations. There were some, some songs that were for the most part done, and Walter brought in some songs.
I had to bail basically.
Yeah.
I got the gig and took off, and like I would
We hated
literally
you.
have the conversation with Rudy too, because he was like, yeah, you can just write all this stuff and produce it, and like I was like, great, this is going to be awesome. And then I was like, I can't do it, man. I'm happy to write, and like I did whatever I could, but I just had to bail just as Walter was kind of coming in, so it just all worked out,
Well, you were there we've done one live gig, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You were there for that.
Yeah, I did play at the Whiskey. And now that, if I can do whatever I can do, I still want to do, because the great songs.
I'm super proud of the record.
Yeah.
And I said record, there's an older guy talking again. And, like we were saying, it's available on iTunes and it's out there. And I brought Eric 2 copies of the CD tonight because he didn't even get one.
Because I'm just now getting it. But, COVID happened and no one's seen anybody. So it's like pretty trippy.
But it's a really solid record.
Yeah.
And
you did some of the writing too, obviously. And like, was this your first time writing stuff or?
First time getting anything I'd written onto recording, a major label recording, I guess.
Right.
Tons of demos over the years of things. And I'd sang on some, just played on some, written with people, all that, but nothing ever went anywhere.
Got you. Yeah.
So very exciting in that regard for sure.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that.
Did you find, did it come easy? Did you find that you kind of found your voice as a writer? Or, I mean, obviously it's just one project, but.
I would, so with that in mind, I would say no, not yet. I'm still exploring. But there was, this happens with everybody in every project that they're involved in, sure. But I remember one of the big things for me was when Rudy and I had our first meeting with the label and driving home that night, I remember him singing what ended up turning into Pick Your Lies. Because at the time it was something else, but it had the chorus melody.
Right.
And I remember thinking, that sounds really killer. And then got home and I just walked in the house and grabbed this one guitar and for whatever reason threw a capo on the 7th fret and just started playing these chords. And I had within like 5 minutes, I think I had it demoed on my phone of the what turned into Shattered Lives. And that was one where it's like, it was fun to have something I wrote 90% of right away in an inspired moment.
Right.
And I had in my head, I wanted this to be like, remember how the working title was Mafa for a long time?
Yeah.
Because when I put it together, I thought, Rudy's going to crush this vocal and it's going to become like mother, father to us. We're all big Journey fans, without being a direct ripoff of anything. It's like definitely inspired by. And with a few tweaks, we got that arrangement together. And I remember for me, one of the most fun stories of doing this project, I got to Walter's one time. I think it was probably a guitar day maybe, but some overdubs to do on that song. And he said, "Did you hear the vocal yet?" I'm like, "No." And then Rudy got there right before we were going to play it. And he goes, "Oh, you haven't heard this yet?" He goes, "I'm really kind of nervous, And so he stood behind me while we fired it up on the big speakers. And, I was so blown away. I literally had tears at the end of the song.
Yeah. And
I'm like, man, you knocked it out of the park. It's like, and to have, and on one hand, it's kind of like talking about the roles we're in with Dwight and Dennis, where you're fulfilling a role on one hand. It was kind of similar where it's like, I presented this music, but it's not a song until the vocal melody and the vocal. And it's like,
right.
And it's like, wow, because he goes, I don't want to do something wrong with your baby. I wanted it to be right. And I just couldn't be more proud of the way that song turned out.
Well, that's so great.
One thing that, back to Van Halen again, it's like a very good friend of mine, I'm sure you know him too, Al Estrada. He's brilliant guitar player. In fact, he was playing with David Lee Roth on the most recent tour before COVID.
Right.
He actually replaced me in the Journey tribute band when I got the Dennis gig. And I remember telling you guys, he learned the set in like 2 days notice or something and came and played so much better than me. It was like, damn. But he's a brilliant player. He was in the Van Halen tribute for years, and he's got all that stuff down cold.
Another guy, Van Halen tribute. Now he's playing with David Lee Roth. It's pretty crazy.
And I was talking to him about the record after it had been mastered, and I think I gave him a couple of tracks to listen to, and I said, "Man, the weirdest thing." He goes, "I hope there's a lot of this on there." Blah, blah. And I said, "You know what? There's only one song on there where I do any kind of tapping at all." He's like, "Oh, well, I hope there's at least some Phase 90 on there." That's another big Eddie thing, right? I said, "Well, actually, they added one in when Andy Zuckerman, a good friend of mine, that mixed the record, that he added one post on this one section because it needed a little love."
Little Eddie.
Yeah.
I got a Phase 90 on my pedal board.
Nice.
That'll work on a bass too.
Absolutely. Try it on a vocal.
And there's Shattered Lives. Talk about that, the lyrics a little bit. Like that's kind of a deep message too in that song.
Yeah, and Rudy wasn't aware of. He told me earlier on, when he first kind of had that spark of the idea for it. He was like, "Want to make it something about mental health, blah blah blah," and kind of approach it. And unbeknownst to him, and hopefully I get through this. A good buddy of mine committed suicide, and so it became very personal to me. And
gotcha.
When we did the video, I'm wearing one of his shirts in the video, and it's one of the, it's like that silence. It reminds me that it's a saying you hear all the time. It's like everybody out there is dealing with something,
right?
And, so before you let your anger out on somebody for some traffic situation or somebody cuts you off here, that's like and somebody could be at their last nerve, or
right.
And
right.
But it's funny how we celebrate. We give more weight, if you will, to like celebrity lives.
Right.
Because I was going to say we've lost a lot of important. Everyone's important,
right.
But the high profile situations, like in music, we've had Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington recently, and then Robin Williams. I think was kind of where Rudy was focusing for his original inspiration. But yeah, it's a terrible situation, and people have to understand that it helps a phone call away, but your friends often won't reach out, and there's like we put the National Suicide Awareness Hotline number, I think, in the video, and
right, it's a big issue right now. Again,
yes,
with the lockdown and everything, because now people are more isolated, so it's a pretty relevant song.
Yeah, and it's true where there's you think about, I can't even imagine. We talked about when things were first starting up with the lockdown. And it's like, imagine if you had a new roommate or a new boyfriend, girlfriend, new wife, husband.
Right.
It's like, or imagine if you're alone.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'd be talking to myself within 3 weeks, 3 minutes maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
I talk to myself now.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I do understand now. But, and if you think about the things like, spousal abuse or child abuse or pet abuse, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's easily exacerbated by this.
Yeah. Just amplifies all of this situation. You also did this cool intro to End of a Dream that me and Rudy had written that song mostly. And then when I finally heard the mix, I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's funny.
Was that written specifically for that, or did you have that previous?
We were kind of knocking things around, and I think it's probably Walter's idea, actually. He said, I feel like there should be like an intro to this piece. And we were sitting there in the studio, and we're just E minor, just guitar player's thing. And we just knocked a few things around. I'm like, well, we'll come back to it, right? And then when I went home at night, I remembered I wrote this piece. I've been playing guitar for like a year. And I think I was listening to a lot of like Alex Lifeson from Rush and Steve Howe from Yes. And just kind of, it's not a very difficult piece, but it's like I was trying to find something that sounded classical to my young ears,
Right.
and I had this whole section and just never, I would play it all the time, like to myself, I never forgot about it. It's like, hey, I might have a home here. So I played it on the phone that night and sent it to Walter. He goes, this is great. I think we can definitely use this. And we put it on there, and then we ended up using it as the outro too. And it's a cool section. Some people have, people on YouTube comments, well, that sounds terrible. They have what's all the, it's lo-fi and he's popping. It's like, it's supposed to sound like that. We try to make it sound, but and some
That's
people
a
say,
hip
it's really
thing,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
It was on Dennis DeYoung's record. I heard
That's
it.
right. That's right. But that was fun because it's, sometimes you come with these little sections. That's part of the joy of songwriting collaborations too. We're like, I've got this great verse and it goes nowhere.
Right.
Well, I've got this bridge, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds amazing. It's like bookends the whole thing, and it also gives it this sort of dreamy thing. It's called the end of a dream, but it's kind of a dreamy vibe. So,
and that was a funny really thing cool. That Frontiers, when we were talking about which songs to do videos for, and that was one of them they wanted to do, and they had sent us a couple of like mid 70s Journey videos where they're all wearing like white polyester and it's just so funny. And Neil has I think he was playing a acoustic was on a Gracie stand,
right?
And the Frontiers guys were like, well, yeah, we envisioned seeing this, and August could be, what did they call it? August could have a sling. And I think of a sling or something. You're like, what? And like, we're definitely not dressing like that. It's like no. We just did the vibe of this. But
right.
It's kind of funny.
And it should probably be said here, it's Frontiers Records, and they're an Italian label.
Correct.
So that's that.
and Dennis is on that label, and almost pretty much, I don't think Styx is any, but pretty much every band that from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s that's still working, 90% of them are on Frontiers. So they're keeping rock music alive.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, like Rick Springfield too. Like not just heavy rock stuff, It's pretty great. It's pretty cool. And Dennis was super supportive of this record.
Yes, and
which is kind of cool.
He, one of the things too, we play, when
I know him as Dennis now. I'm on a first name basis.
Oh, Mr. DeYoung. When we play the songs like before the concert or on the way out, he always puts in one of our songs in there, and
that's so cool.
I remember asking him, it's like, would it be okay? Of course.
So that's really neat that he allows. So were you ever apprehensive about telling him, or
a little bit? Because
it's not every artist is gonna want that to happen, And
he's always been so encouraging to all of us in the band too. And it's like, on one level, it's like, hey, if you ever get a better offer, I won't hold you back.
It's like, I love you, but I'll find someone else.
Right.
And I remember reading an email from him too, I think it was, where he kind of gave some feedback on the record.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
At one point he was like, I don't have the time, but I wish I'd have produced this for you. And it's like, and there was especially the song "Found You Now." That there's two versions on the record, of course, and I've been doing the acoustic one in my shows too. And actually, I don't sing this on the record, and Rudy sings a lot better than I do. But this is kind of give you an idea of it. A lot of people from the show have bought the record now, and the CD, or downloaded it or something.
Yeah.
But there's the full blown version of the song. It's pretty much Walter's baby, that song. But and he was like, this song sounds like it came out of the Jonathan Cain playbook. I see what you guys are going for. And it was like, they said, it's criminal. The end section, the outro, the whoa, because why are there not words there? That's the biggest hook of the song. Is what are you guys doing? And we're at the airport, and he's like, hold on. And he walks away. Well, that was weird. He's like, just chewed me out about his song choice. It's already done. We can't.
Right.
And he comes back like 10 minutes later, and he's like, you might want to write this down. He goes, I got this chorus for you. He gives me here's the title. I'm like, and I didn't, because I feel like this is so weird. But
wow.
I mean, he wanted to fix the song for us.
That's cool. Wow, that's really cool though. So from, your life has been pretty incredible from a kid from Alaska. And when you look back, like when your arm was hurt and you started learning that guitar, did you ever kind of imagine that this is where it was going to end up?
Never at all. And that's, somebody, told me recently, it's like, again, because I tend to dog myself a lot on those Friday shows. So I get upset about not sounding great on something or whatever, like great on something. And say that, think back to when, could you ever have imagined when you first started playing guitar that you'd be where you are now and talking about this and having the experience that you have of playing with somebody you grew up listening to and not idolizing specifically, but, it's like, again, with Eddie passing recently, it's like we came up at a certain time when it's like, you had posters on your wall of rock bands, and these guys were, they were like superheroes in a way. Like And it turns out funny later as when you're 13 and somebody's 20, it seems like you don't realize they're, 30 years later, you're almost the same age, but, but they seem like they're so much older. But
right, exactly.
Just incredible to have some of the experience that I've had and to meet some of the people that. One thing I would say, we don't often, like the Boston thing was the only band we've really gone out on the road toured with, but we have, had lots of bands open for us over the years, and we've opened for some other bigger bands like Heart, for example, that comes to mind. And we've just done several shows with Pat Benatar and
cool.
Blue Oyster Cult. I'm Rick Springfield, right. But 38 Special. I'm missing somebody I can't think of right now. But anyway, the point I was going to make was the first time I met Neil Giraldo with Pat Benatar. Afterwards, our manager's like, "You got to stop being such a fanboy with these people and treat them like peers." And I said, "I'm not his peer."
Right?
It's kidding me. It's like
wow.
But the thing about it is that everybody I've met in these bands that are rock stars to me and legitimately, I've not had a single instance yet of somebody who was a jerk at all.
Yeah,
right. Everyone's been so. I get the feeling that people are grateful that Dennis says this sometimes too. It's like if I would have known, people would be coming to pay money and see me sing these songs 30 years later. I would have written them in a lower key for one. But it's like, but it's like I think they just feel grateful that that people still care.
Right,
people come out and support them still.
Yeah,
so they're very gracious about it.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yeah, that's so great. We did a show with 38 Special and ended up at the bar with them afterwards, and those guys are still rock stars. You know what I mean? Well, man, it's been such an awesome time.
Yeah, this is very cool. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for telling me all your stories. And I know there's tons more. And
on the drive home, I'm like, I forgot to say this.
But it's really a pleasure talking to you. And so thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. And look forward to hearing what you edit out of this.
Exactly.
Now it's time for that beer.
Yes, let's do it. I'd like to say in defense of me not practicing 8 hours a day during college is that eventually I had to catch up with all that stuff that I had kind of half-assed in college. My first kind of contemporary jazz, smooth jazz, if you will, gig was Nelson Rangel, sax player from Denver. And I remember getting that gig and I had just got done playing in a blues band for years before that, maybe 6 or 7 years, and different blues bands. And to go from that to playing lines and playing jazz and playing really difficult technical music was quite a shock to the system. It brought me right back to Berkeley in my brain and thought, wow, maybe I should have put in those 8 hours. So eventually I had to do that, so really what I did was just delayed that. But eventually I had to put in the 8 hours or the 10,000 hours or whatever figure you think is appropriate or you use as your goal, and it will catch up to you. So there's no getting out of the work, you know what I mean? And that's what I think a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to avoid the work, and that's not going to really serve you in the end. I also loved when he said he had talked to a friend who said he could find the one thing in any song that he liked enough to get through it. And I've often said that I don't have the luxury of always playing the music that I like, and I think this is a really good technique in getting through those overplayed songs or the ones that you don't enjoy hearing, I think that's something I kind of come to naturally as well to get through because, at the end of the day, it's all music and there's got to be something you can enjoy about everything, even if it's Brown Eyed Girl every single night. There's a bass solo in that song, at least. GIT is a college here in Los Angeles, and it stands for Guitar Institute of Technology. And eventually they added like Vocal Institute of Technology, VIT, and Bass, BIT, and so on and so forth. Now it's all just called MI, Musicians Institute, and not MIT, which is what I refer to it as. That's a really smart college in Massachusetts. The Atomic Punks is a Van Halen tribute band, and they're still out there doing it, and they're awesome. Check them out. Rockstar was the movie that we were talking about. It was the movie of a guy who gets discovered on YouTube and becomes the lead singer of his favorite rock band. Chuck Panazzo is the bass player for Styx. And GERD, I had to look up GERD. It stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease. And it's a digestive disorder that affects the ring of muscles between your esophagus and your stomach. So there you have it. You learn all kinds of things on the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. And I hope you enjoyed learning those things. I'm a Dive Bar Rockstar. Wow, you've made it to the end. I'm hoping it's because you completely enjoyed yourself and are now filled with knowledge and inspiration to move forward with your dreams. If that is the case and you would like to stay informed of new episodes, live events, and general news, please go to divebarrockstar.com and sign up for the mailing list. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, or complaints about anything you hear on the show, please email me at fanmail@divebarrockstar.com, and you may even end up on the show. We at the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, with all of our hearts, thank you for listening, and remember, it's all about dreams.